I've been teaching economics at the college level for about 30 years. When I do so, I remind my students that every point on every line of the graphs that we use represents a person. I explain that we never ought to lose sight of the humanity in our analyses. Today I'd like to talk about the humanity of the people of Ukraine, people who live in a country where the boundless blue sky kisses endless fields of golden wheat. Over the past few days, we've been reading reports that the Trump administration is threatening to revoke temporary protected status for up to 240,000 Ukrainians, as well as many others who have sought refuge in the U.S. I can't help but think about the words inscribed on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. They read, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." This poignant phrase is deeply ingrained in the American psyche. We know that we have often failed to implement its promise, yet these words connect to the best America was meant to be. Sadly, these words are as threatened now as they ever have been. I'd like to talk to you about two Ukrainian friends whose paths have recently crossed mine. The story of the first begins about 6 years ago when I discovered a band from Russia called Leonid and Friends. The band's story is fascinating and inspiring, and I encourage you to learn more about it. When the band began to tour the U.S. in 2019, they had a member from Ukraine. His name is Sergei. My wife and I were determined to see the band, so we bought tickets to see them perform in Okoboji, Iowa, in November 2021. The 7-hour one-way drive from northern Minnesota was worth it. There was so much I could say about it, but I'd like to focus on Sergei today. His talent was clearly genius. After the performance, I met him. I purchased a CD he was selling titled Songs from the Other Side of the Planet. Happily, he signed it for me. I thought I would be able to see him perform with the band again in the not-too-distant future. Little did I know that 3 months later, Russia would invade his homeland, and his time with Leonid and Friends would be over. He created a Facebook page to document the terror of the war from where he lived. For weeks I listened to his updates, and it was not uncommon to hear bombs exploding in his neighborhood. My insulated complacency about events taking place on the other side of the planet was metaphorically exploded. Then, last month, my personal connection with the tragedy in Ukraine intensified further when I flew from Minnesota to Utah to see my mother for the last time. Mom's health was failing rapidly. I knew if I wanted to see her again, I needed to leave Minnesota immediately. So I quickly made arrangements to fly to Utah, leaving in the early hours of the morning, with the first leg of the journey being from Minneapolis to Denver. When I transferred planes to continue to Salt Lake City, I found myself sitting next to a young lady who had a serious and intelligent look. I felt compelled to talk with her. As we spoke, I was amazed to discover that she was from Ukraine. I learned that she was employed in Utah, training missionaries to serve Ukrainian refugees wherever they had been displaced, places like Western Europe and Canada. I explained my purpose in going to Utah to see my dying mother. She sadly replied that her family was scattered over much of the world. She did not know when she would be able to see them again. I asked if she would be able to stay in the U.S. She replied again that she did not know, given our current situation. As with Sergei, suddenly a person, a point on the line of the graph, came into clear focus for me. I arrived where Mom was about 8 hours before she passed away. I wondered how my seatmate would have felt if she could not be with her mother when she passed away. I wondered also what it must be like for her to be driven out of her homeland. I walked the mountain foothills the day after Mom passed away, and I considered what a blessing it is to have a homeland. I considered the sacredness of the bonds that can exist between family, community, culture, and landscapes. To honor these connections, I placed a rock polished by the relentless action of Lake Superior's waves on Minnesota's shore into the vault of her casket. No, we ought never to lose sight of the humanity in the tools we use to make our decisions. Life is sacred, in part because of its infinite potential. If we can help that potential unfold, we have done well. And in America, if we have done that by helping people like our Ukrainian friends, we have been true to the words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." These are the kinds of deeds that our children and our children's children will reverently remember. Until next time, I want to wish you all the best from the wilderness.